What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Will, and this week I have the distinct pleasure of bringing you guys a conversation that I recently had with a fellow by the name of Jeffrey Colt. A lot of you probably know Jeff Colt. He's pretty much a legend of the White Mountains. He grew up cutting his teeth in the White Mountains hut systems, where he was a hut caretaker for quite a long time. And this episode, we are talking to Jeff because back in September, he went out and set an incredible new FKT on the Mahoosuc Traverse. Jeff's also known for his efforts on the White Mountains Hut Traverse, which I think he really had a big hand in popularizing in the late 2000 teens. But he's also had some really awesome race results, top 10 at some really big races like Western States. He also this year won, and I believe set a new course record. I could be wrong about that, but he won High Lonesome 100, and he has a lot more efforts to his name. Really, really strong technical mountain runner, also incredibly fit, obviously. He went out on the Mahoosuc Traverse and ran it in about 6 hours and 40 minutes, which was almost 40 minutes faster than Hillary Gerardi's already incredible time that she put down a couple years back. So it was really cool to see sort of the competition level ratchet up on the Mahoosuc Traverse. It's an incredible route, but it's one that gets a little bit less play sometimes than the PEMI or the Presidential Traverse or the Hut Traverse, and I think it's absolutely a worthwhile course to race. And in my opinion, probably the gnarliest 50K there are ways you can make up a random dumb 50K that's harder, but in terms of a good aesthetic route, I think it's the hardest 50K in the White Mountains. And I think that should be raced. And the Mahoosucs are just an amazing, amazing mountain range. So it's super cool to talk to Jeff about it, to hear a little bit more of the history behind it. It was an awesome conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did chatting with him. Other things, sorry that this episode is a couple of days late here, but ended up being a really busy week. I have multiple residency interviews this week, and so it's just busy times, getting ready for those and doing all that stuff. It's a lot of fun, but just tiring and busy. So that's my excuse for why we're tardy here. But what else? I'll keep this intro relatively short. Before we get to the episode, let me tell you about the sponsor for this week, and that's Infinite Nutrition. Infinite. You guys know about Infinite. It's a total nutrition powder. You mix it right into your water. You don't need anything else. What do you want from them? It's a great company. You can customize your blend. That's what I do. I can get the perfect amount of sodium, perfect amount of protein, perfect amount of simple to complex carbs. Just fantastic company. Works super well. I used a ton of Infinite at the Mount Escutney Vertical Backyard Ultra recently. I used Infinite a bunch at Tour. It worked really well for me. So if you want to try out Infinite, head over to their website, which is down in the show notes. Use code From the Backcountry. Is that 3 words? That's wrong. It's actually all one word. And you can get 15% off your entire order. That includes their custom blends. That includes their high fructose blends. That includes their protein and recovery mixes. You name it, accounts for it. Go try them out. Great company. I know a lot of you guys use them too. It's awesome. What else? One more sponsor here at the beginning. That's Burgeon Outdoor. Burgeon. It's a fantastic local clothing company right in Lincoln and Gorham, New Hampshire. They hand sew all of their own clothes together right in Lincoln and Gorham, and provide 1, fantastic clothing, but 2, jobs for local people right in the White Mountains community. I've been partnering with them. They're a new partner for me, and I've been really digging their stuff. I've been using their Alpha Direct hoodies. I've been wearing them almost every day. Actually, my girlfriend is getting sick of how much I am wearing their Alpha Direct hoodies around the house. But they're so light and ventilated, but they're also super warm, super comfortable. I plan to use them a lot as layering, and as they're great for lightweight layers when you're sleeping, backpacking. Fantastic. Can't say enough about Burgeon. So if you want to check out Burgeon, also head on over to their website, which is down in the show notes. Finally, we got one more sponsor for this week. That is John G. But you're going to hear from John G later on in the episode. And I think that's it, guys. I think the last thing I'll say is thank you guys so much for listening. I think we'll have one more episode coming out in 2025. Hopefully, like a little wrap up, fun award show quasi kind of thing that Xander and I do if I can drag him on the podcast. I think that'll be a lot of fun. But you guys make it so much fun for me. I know I've said this a million times on the pod, but I never anticipated that anyone would ever listen to this. And when it started, it was just an excuse to network. And now for some reason, a lot of people, well, for me, a lot of people listen to it. So that's super cool. If you want to help out the show, the biggest thing you can possibly do is send your favorite episode to a friend, force it on your family over the holidays. They don't know what they're missing. Tell them about Seltzer Time, and leave a 5-star review if you feel so inclined. Hope you all have some wonderful holidays. Hope you get some rest. Perfect time to take some time off, drink some Infinite for fun, put some Infinite in your eggnog. How could that go wrong? All right, guys, I'll talk to you in the next episode. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on, and yeah, see you guys later. Peace. Yep. What seltzer do you have there?
To match my hair color, I'm going with the Whole Foods ginger variety.
Very nice, very nice. Does it have a little spice to it?
Oh, yeah, good spice.
Nice. I'm rocking the Hannaford brand grapefruit flavor. Not my usual, but it's the only thing in the fridge right now. So
that's good.
We do what we can. Bottled or canned rather in Scarborough, Maine. It's huge.
Nice.
Local. We're here to talk mainly about the Mahoosuc Traverse, but we'll talk about a bunch of things. But I guess first and foremost, how are you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, so we were sharing just a minute before, I'm 9 weeks into a 12-week calf strain recovery. So I actually had like 2 full months of 0 heart rate elevation at all, which was pretty wild for me. I think first time in probably 10 years that I've kind of gone through that. But yeah, it's been nice returning to some exercise, and had tried to lean in to a strong off season. We've had a very slow fall here in Colorado. I'm based in Carbondale, and Indian summer is still going on. It was like 60 degrees today. So yeah, transition is happening slowly, which kind of gives more time to feel like I'm just being, which is a nice feeling.
That's super fair. That's interesting. Out here, we're getting, I feel like, more snow early on than we usually do. Like, people are skiing J top to bottom right now. I think Sunday River and Killington just opened. So for once, the East Coast is ahead of the game.
Yeah, it seems like when I was back east last week, like 16 inches or something like that on Mount Washington, which is awesome. So I feel like back east, the snow layering and like avalanche cycle that Colorado is known for, it's not as much of a problem in New Hampshire. So hopefully early snow is just a fun thing back east.
Hopefully. But so did you get that calf strain on or around the Mahoosuc Traverse? Because like rewinding 9 weeks, it seems like relatively close to that time.
It was a couple weeks after. Mahoosuc Traverse, everything went swimmingly. The calf strain, I got kind of like first in my first hard effort back from the Mahoosuc Traverse. And then I like dialed things back and tried to control it. And then 10 days after that initial like inkling of a strain, I fully like had more of a grade 3 strain while playing wiffle ball in upstate New York at a wedding. Just
it's
not
never
the injury
running.
you
it's
want.
Always the
yeah. For me, it's typically dancing, pickleball, wiffle ball, but
that's brutal.
So it goes.
And so as far as the Mahoosuc Traverse, I think you were part of the Hut system. I think you and Jordan, as far as I understand it, are both Jordan Fields are lovers of the history of the roots up here. Can you speak a little bit to the history of the Hut Traverse and like the racing history of early efforts and like when people started racing this thing?
Yeah, for sure. Jordan definitely knows a good bit about the history. I feel like I learned a lot of it from this fellow Hut kid, Scott Berkeley, who like loved Appalachia, which is like the AMC's kind of periodical, and
Hmm.
Appalachia has naturalist writings and essays, and it also used to just have like you know essays on like runs in the whites. And now that I think about it, both liking running and writing, like be cool to submit something to Appalachia about some of my journeys in the White Mountains. But the history in the White Mountains is documented like for a long time. Back to the 1870s with like the first hikes up the Crawford Path. Well before that, excuse me, Davis Path, and like the world of hiking and kind of the human history or natural history in the White Mountains is really strong and well documented. Um, the Appalachian Trail certainly like added to the allure and attention that the White Mountains got, because it put this, you know, kind of transcontinental trail right through the heart of the White Mountains. But the Hut Traverse, the Hut system was established in the early part of the 20th century, late 1800s, early 1900s. And all 8 huts that we know of today, we're like talking 1960, I think was around when Mizpah was established.
Oh,
So that like modern Hut Traverse has still a legacy of over like 60, 65 years. Um, some of the early efforts pre-Mizpah that were really astonishing were by this guy, Chris Getz, in the 1950s. And Chris Getz certainly ties into the Mahoosuc Traverse as well. The Swan Song, if you're familiar with like that kind of like song and dance in the White Mountains of how do we
hmm.
make the hardest 50K, possible, also ties back to Chris Getz. And these early, these trails were mostly established and built in the early 1900s. Some Civilian Conservation Corps, some Appalachian Mountain Club, Randolph Mountain Club, Dartmouth College, Harvard, UNH, all had vested interests in creating this trail system throughout the White Mountains. And I think anyone who's been there gets to kind of reap those benefits today. There's extensive trails, and they're often pretty steep, pretty rugged. But Chris Getz, in a lot of ways, kind of set this bar on the Hut Traverse that was like all of a sudden, this isn't a faster than 24 hours route, it's a 16-hour route. And on the Mahoosuc Traverse, you know, brought it down under 8 hours, which in his era, he's wearing like Limmer hiking boots. I don't know if his chaps were leather or cotton, but they definitely chafed like hell. Um,
It's
so
crazy.
yeah, I think there's just something beautiful about a local community's appreciation for like a mountain range or a landscape.
Hmm.
And I think trail running owes some of its legacy and uh its appeal to the fact that this has been documented for a long time. And fastest known time culture especially is just like it's really ripe in the White Mountains. It's where
Yeah.
you can look back a long ways to be like, all right, people were eyeing this stuff 100 plus years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And what made you so, you have a history in the White Mountains, especially with the Hut Traverse and with the Hut crew. What made you decide to take on the Mahoosuc Traverse?
In some parts, when I was working in the huts, Ben Nephew and Ryan Welts finally lowered Chris Getz's time. And I remember that kind of being passed around. Um, Ben Nephew, until COVID, until the pandemic, he was like the chosen one at FKTs. He
Yeah.
had the most of anyone. And if you're in the Northeast, like you can vouch for the fact that pretty much all of his FKT efforts were really stout on like well established, really challenging trails. in my mind, Ben Nephew's still kind of the gold standard for like setting so much of the precedent of the modern FKT culture. Seeing that they went after it and like had a really hard time in 2014, I think, breaking a record that was set in the early 50s. It's like, okay, like I know the White Mountains. You know, my hut tenure started at Zealand, then Lonesome Lake, then Madison Springs, then Greenleaf, a little bit at Lakes, a little bit at Carter, a little bit at Tux, and like got to know the White Mountains pretty well. Definitely the Pemi area really well. It's always intrigued by by the Mahoosucs. It's just like just out of reach. You know, if you're working in the Whites in the summer, you're not necessarily going to connect up to the Mahoosucs. It's a little out of the
Right.
trail network. Have you been up there?
Yeah, I've through Hike
Through
the
Hike.
AT, and
Yeah.
I think a couple last summer, not the like summer 2024, Scott Beneroff was doing a link up of the Prezi, the Pemi, and the Mahoosuc Traverse, which is such a silly route, but he I paced him through the Mahoosuc Traverse. So that was my first time, because there's a little bit of that traverse that is off of the AT. So it was my first time doing a proper Mahoosuc Traverse, and I had forgotten, man, like it is, with respect to so much of the rest of the Whites, like the Mahoosucs might be the most technical place I've ever been. It's just so ridiculous, especially, the northern half of
It's
that
funny.
traverse. It's
like comical. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is super comical. And I think that the folks who really know the area, you can pick out parts of the Whites. Desolation Trail up like Kerrigan, that's just like a route ladder. Like that's also comically bad. There's a lot of comically bad trails where you're like, I can't believe that this is a trail. What's maybe a little different about the Mahoosuc Traverse, and most of the really crappy parts of the Mahoosuc Traverse are on the AT, is that it's like really technical, comically challenging, crappy terrain on the primary corridor. Like the
Correct.
most
Yeah.
hiked path through that region is the Mahoosuc Traverse. So that's where like just revisiting some of my notes here, but I went Grafton to Berlin or to Gorham. So I was kind of going the other direction that most folks are hiking, northbound, going up Mount Success. Like I did a heel hook. Like I was doing numerous mantles where I was like pulling my full body like 4 to 5 feet up the rock to like continue up the trail. And like that was more insult to injury because the actual like the notch itself is such an extreme version of that.
Mhm.
But in my recollection, the notch was just it, right? It was like, all right, there's like a 2-mile section of this 30-mile route, which is going to be slow moving and crappy. And like 12 miles later or whatever, going up Mount Success, just being like, God damn it, this sucks. Yeah. Yeah. It's humbling and also super engaging and cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely is. Can you speak a little bit to sort of the times on the effort, like the splits? Where did you gain time, versus Hillary's record? I was reading in your trip report that it seems like there were some parts where she was like right on, what you were able to do. I'm interested
Yeah,
where you got time.
the beginning, especially, like Hillary is as good of a technical runner as anyone in the world. I am definitely not a better technical runner than Hillary. And the first 3.5 miles up Old Spec, I was like definitely pushing it. It was interesting having a like 15-pound pack carrying that much water and fuel. When I did the traverse, there was no real accessible water outside of like at mile 6 or so. So I carried a lot of my own, and I got to the fire tower like 5 or 10 seconds after she did. And the entire time I'm like kind of looking at my heart rate being like, this is pretty max effort for an attempt going up Old Spec. I started gaining really going through the notch
Mm.
and like
Mhm.
through the more like in some ways, like there's a height advantage
Sure.
of like jungle gymming. Like I'm close to a foot taller than Hillary, and like that plays some element. But on the more runnable sections, I was able to build a little bit of a gap. Uh, I don't think I felt like in any way comfortable until I got pretty much toward like Gentian Pond. It's like, all right, from here
Mm,
out, it's more runnable, and I've got a buffer.
yeah. Uh, so yeah, I was reading your pack. Did you start with 4.5 liters of water?
Yeah, I was gonna start with 5, and I chugged one like right at the start to like leave it behind. But I started with 4.5 liters of water, and then it would have been 5 liters of water and 7 90-gram precision gels, and then a couple other food pieces as well. But I downed a soft flask and a nutrition or like precision gel like right before going to just be like, I'm gonna need this like on this climb, and I don't want to carry the extra weight. Um, I just brought one filter flask, and like when I'm out on adventures, I have no problem filtering from one flask into the other and then like refilling and stuff. I should have just brought two filter tops. Like I
Mm,
was in a rush or like moving with enough haste that like I made the foolish decision to just fill one bottle at both opportunities where I could have filled two plus. And
sure.
despite having, I think in all I would have drank 6.5 liters or so, which in 6 hours and 40 minutes doesn't seem that off. Uh, it was warm enough. Like I was eating enough. The beef jerky I ate at Gentian Pond was so salty that like I was craving water. So I probably could have drank another 2 liters had I had it. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, my pack was a little heavy. Like that's not something I've done recently is like carry a heavier pack. What was the weight in your pack for the 100 mile wilderness?
Boy, it was lighter than that because I didn't have to carry that much water.
Okay,
I don't
because
know.
you
It
were
was
able to filter
probably
along the way and
between
stuff.
10. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was probably
Yeah,
between 10 and 15 pounds.
that's awesome. That makes me want to do 100 mile wilderness like even more. I think the carrying that much weight, I was like, this is like I just felt it so much in my like
Yeah,
interstitial tissue between my ribs and like these like oblique muscles afterwards. I was like, oh, that's not like what I'm used to running with.
sure.
But having packed for a long time in the huts, like I'm definitely comfortable carrying some weight on my back. But yeah, the other side that was helpful is just like it forced me to drink. Like I wanted the pack to be lighter. So at no point was
Hmm.
I like, I'm not gonna eat my food right now. It's like, no, I'm definitely eating. Like, let's get as much of this in me and off of my back as possible.
Hmm.
So once like the traverse, it's a steep climb. It's like a hyper technical descent. You go through Mahoosuc Notch. It's another steep climb up um South Peak, and then you're a little bit on a ridge, South Peak
Hmm.
all the way to Goose Eye. And like in that zone, I was running the fastest. It's like many hundreds of bog bridges and just like trying to down water and food as efficiently as possible to make running feel easier.
Sure.
Um, and then there's kind of this like steep climbing section again, Mount Success down to Gentian Pond, where it's a bit more technical before opening up kind of Cascade Mountain to Mount Hayes. Like the rest is pretty runnable. So yeah, I had a good reason to like eat and drink, which was just lightening the pack.
Yeah. Looking back, I think you said in your report that there was water at mile 6 and mile 23. Would you have done the water any differently if you did it again in terms of like, like starting with less and just filling up a bunch along the way? Or, like, do you think it wouldn't be worth the time to spend picking up a bunch of water?
I think if I had carried a second like just filter flask top, I think the math in my head for why I didn't was I also had precision drink mix in all but that one bottle with the filter top.
Okay.
And so I didn't want to put drink mix through a filter.
Hmm.
And so like my calories worked out. If I went back into the again, maybe I would have two soft flasks with filter tops that started with water, or something, and just carry an extra like Precision 90.
Mhm.
The only thing I really would have changed is at, I think it was Page Pond or just after that, where there was like a little creek around mile 23. I would have filled two bottles. I I must have run out of my actual like Camelback. First time I've also run with the bladder since working in the huts, like since 2013 or 14. But I must have run out of that bladder like going up Cascade Mountain, still 6.5 miles from the finish, and then I just had one soft flask like that I was kind of like nursing, like, so I don't know if I would have changed. My pack still would have been heavy. The major decision point for me came down to, know, uh in some ways learning from history. Uh Chris Getz did his first attempt on that traverse August 24th. On August 24th, that was like the day I ended up doing it, and I was eyeing it. I was like, you know, it's really dry. I just heard from two friends who had done it a couple days before. Hey, Jeff, don't do this. It's really dry. It's a bad idea. So I was like, you know what? If Chris tried on the 24th and he failed and went back on the 28th and got it, like, I'm fine with that happening to me too. I have a plan. I'm going to like try this plan, but slippery rocks through the Mahoosucs is like a really
Really bad.
dangerous thing when you're trying to run really fast. It hadn't rained in 25 days. Like, for me, carrying 15 pounds on my back was a like kind of nice concession to have good tread the whole time.
For sure.
And there were some parts that was actually so dry, like the dry pine needles and the dry leaves actually were their own like slippery element. But yeah. So I ended up like when I read Chris Getz tried on the 24th and like that was the date I was already trying. It's like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going all in. We're making it happen on the 24th. Uh, you know, whether there's water or not.
Sure. Had you done much of this unsupported style of running since the huts or since like 2016 or wherever?
Yeah, I try to do a like FKT effort maybe every other year.
Mhm.
I'd like to make that every year. I think we're moving to Colorado. FKT efforts were like kind of what really fired me up. Moving to Colorado, all of a sudden I was in an environment where there's a lot of races and it's just way easier to get to competitive races. The desert's also beautiful. Like, racing in the desert's really cool. I think I've said numerous times, if Connecticut, no offense to anyone from Connecticut, but if Connecticut was Moab, I would never leave New Hampshire. If Connecticut was the desert and it was 3 hours away, New England would maybe be the greatest place in the world.
Sure.
I've loved racing in the desert. Last year, I did just a like 36-mile canyon link up of Little and Big Dominguez Canyon, which really like appealed to me, and had a bunch of route finding, which was fun, and just like beautiful combination of like petroglyphs and like amazing canyon features.
Mhm.
Um, 2018, I did the Hut Traverse record. Um, I think that like the FKTs I'm more interested are in New Hampshire, and I live in
Mm.
Colorado. So like that typically provides enough of a challenge. This year I got to go back to Maine for like 3 weeks. My wife's family lives in Rangeley. So that's the Saddleback poster. Being there for 3 weeks, it's enough time to like find a window to do a fun effort. I actually went the week before I did Mahoosucs, um, the Bigelows, thinking like, I've never
Sick.
been here. I'm gonna just try to run this as fast as possible. And the the effort on the Bigelows, I think Dylan Flewelling has it, is like totally stout. I
It's
like
pretty
I
stout.
I was like not trying to be presumptuous of like I'm just going to show up never seeing these mountains and get an FKT. Those mountains are so cool. The Bigelows quickly like jumped up in my appreciation to like maybe my favorite little mountain range in the Northeast. The Bald Faces in New Hampshire are also like creme de la creme and
Mhm.
often overlooked. But yeah, like I like that style of An unsupported effort, if it ends up with like a bike commute at the end, awesome. If it ends up that a friend can pick you up and shuttle you back, that's also super cool. The style on Bigelow's, I think Ryan Welts, when he had it, he kayaked uh, back Flagstaff Lake, which is pretty sweet.
That's
So
sweet. It's a big
like
kayak.
doing a run to kayak effort just seems cool. I think that like multiple modality style efforts, in the desert, you see it quite a bit with folks who like hike into places and then pack raft out. But like the dream would be to be able to lean into that more and
Sure.
race competitively less. My current setting and setup with my sponsors is that like there's no incentive for doing FKTs and there is for racing. So
Yeah. How do
that's
you see
maybe the
that?
world I'm in more.
What do you like? Do you see that changing in the near or middle future, or is returning to FKT sort of a more long term thing?
I think it could change in the near or middle future. On is my primary sponsor, and I've got another year on my contract with them, so through 2026. Nothing's going to change in terms of like incentivizing FKTs
Mm-hmm.
during this current contract I'm on. But they're at least like asking us if we are thinking about doing any. And like, I think both exploring, is there a storytelling element here, or we do want to know what people are eyeing. I think future structures could include incentives for FKTs. On my end, like this is going to come off as like kind of uh almost like blanket statements, but like on my end, like UTMB races in many ways are like the races sponsors want me to do. Those are the races for them. The races that really inspire me and that I really want to do, like there's a balance. And FKTs fall into like the races that I really want to do. Hard Rock 100, which this lovely mug is from, also a race I really want to do. Dale, if you're listening, I know it's campaign season. Search up Colt for one of your picks this year. Like there's an element of like you got to do one for them, then you can do one for yourself. And uh like I respect that. Like it's super cool that I have a brand that helps make a lot of my like dreams a reality. And getting to travel to cool places and run. Like I graduated college with a ton of debt. And when I heard that like all I wanted to do was travel the world and I had no money to travel, when I heard that some people could actually get paid to go to races, I was like, well, shit, I love running. Like I'm just gonna hammer myself until I get there. Um, and
Sure.
yeah, that was 6 years, 5 years later until like I kind of got to that place. But sometimes I'm like, wait, this is like the dream of my 24-year-old self. I might be 34 now, but still it's super cool that this is happening.
Mhm. Oh, this is a bit of a tangent from the Mahoosuc Traverse, but now I'm curious. You mentioned sort of the marketing and storytelling component of FKTs being something that companies might potentially, be interested in the future. What what White Mountains FKTs do you see as being the most compelling, most marketable from a storytelling perspective?
I'm letting your question absorb. I want to give some preface here that Carl Sabe like runs for On.
Sure.
Like they've made movies about his PCT. That's like actually it's super good and definitely
Mhm.
worth checking out if you haven't seen it. They also made a movie when Katie Scheidt did the Hut Traverse,
Mm.
and that must have been 2019 or 2020. I think it was 2019. The year after I think maybe I did the Hut Traverse. So they made a documentary, 10-minute, 20-minute or something YouTube piece on Katie running it with Jorma and getting the women's FKT, which is so, so fast. So like when I say like they want to know, in some ways, like that's Carl. He's one of the best long distance FKT folks in the planet. And
Mhm.
he's on our team. He's like an athlete. He has a little bit of a different relationship with FKTs than like I was not signed because I've numerous long trail FKTs.
Sure. Yeah.
I was signed like because I'm competitive in a golden, ticket Western States series style runner. Uh,
Right.
That said, I do think the Hut Traverse has a lot of cool history. It's hard for me to think past that one, having worked in the huts, and it just being like the not the only, but one of the few like really like Euro style environments
Mm.
in the States where you can link up these huts. It's it's reminiscent of what's happening in the Alps. And Ons from Switzerland. So I think like there might be more storytelling around that. Personally, I think there could be and should be just more like if we're piecing apart the AT, I think state records are super cool. And like I
Boom.
want to own New Hampshire. Like I want like growing up in Hanover and working in the Whites, that 163 miles, like I want that. Uh that's something that appeals to me and I think is really cool. I think the same can be said like Maine is super appealing.
Finn's been preaching the Maine AT gospel for years now.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it would be like a cool segment. You know, Vermont is actually like not that it's harder than the Vermont 100, but like Vermont is like a far more runnable section. I think there's some maybe it just takes folks who grew up in those states to lean into it, but like for me, that's really appealing to me. Um, Going to school in Middlebury, the long trails relatively appealing to me. No, that's out of the
Mm-hmm.
White Mountains. Uh, I know at one point in time, someone kind of pieced together, uh, is it Live Free or Die Trail, Granite State Trail, something like that. That was like the long trail equivalent in New Hampshire. That kind of connected the Sunapee Range up through Hanover, hits the AT, and then goes Coos Trail up to kind of like the Dartmouth Grant. That is super cool to me. I don't necessarily think the shorter routes like the Prezi or the Pemi are as appealing from a
Mm.
storytelling component. They're both really aesthetic, but I guess it depends on how long of a story we're talking about. I also know like those aren't in my wheelhouse, so I don't think about them as much.
Really? You don't think those are in your wheelhouse?
I think I'd have to like very much train for going uphill in a way
Mm.
that like uphill speed and just raw speed are often like very similar. I've never thought of myself as the fastest runner. I'm like a pretty durable runner and I'm a great technical runner. Uh, I don't know if I've got the chops to ascend or necessarily maybe descend as you know as fast as those times require. The same like great range is maybe like right in this middle ground, but these times are so fast nowadays. It's crazy.
Yeah. Have you done a great range?
Just recreationally, like for
Yeah,
fun, it was awesome.
same.
But yeah, so cool. I like
It's so cool, but just like it's not even. I mean, it might be the one place that like rivals the Mahoosuc to me in terms of just like pure ridiculousness. It's so silly.
again, I'm glad you appreciate the silliness of it. I think route ladders are comical. I think like when you see something and you're like, that's a trap. Like that's the first reaction. It's like it's pretty hilarious that these are like, you know, really popular hiking trails. And it's always like this disconnect of talking to people in Colorado. I'm like, you just don't know. Like, yeah, it can be steep scree. Like you can go off trail and find crazy stuff in Colorado, but
Sure.
this is like, you know, the Falling Waters Trail, the most popular hike in America. It's like so foolish.
Yeah, it's definitely. Do you find that like when you come back east from out west, do you need sort of a transition period to get your technical legs
Ass
back under
kicked
you?
to get my ass kicked. Yeah, absolutely. It's nuts. I mean, that was like, I just went, I think the Bigelow Traverse is 16 or 17 miles. I
Mhm.
think with where I parked my bike, I did a 20-mile run and then like a 15-mile bike ride or something like that. I was devastated. My body was so like, there is no scenario if I go for a run here where I get to a place on a trail and I have to two-legged jump 4 feet down, two-legged land, and then like continue running. And like those types of body movements are so different. Um, that said, the Mahoosucs, the Bigelows, the terrain that goes on there, like I think it's more challenging than what's on the Hut Traverse. when I did the Mahoosuc Traverse, I was like, I'm pretty fit. I figured out my nutrition. Like, I think in August of this year, I was feeling as mountain fitness as I've ever been, or as mountain fit, and definitely figured out my nutrition. So I was like, with no nutrition in 2018, I did 10:57 on the Hut Traverse, like better fitness and better nutrition. Like, can I crack an hour off that? Like, I think Jack's time is 9:59, so like an hour would be what would needed to like get the FKT. And like Jack was kind of like, we texted a little bit, and he was like, yeah, like you should go for it. Doing the Bigelow, I was like, there's no way I have 46 miles of this type of terrain in my legs.
Sure.
And I know the ridiculous parts of that route quite well. Going down South Twin is hilarious. Garfield in general is like pretty comical, but on the whole, Hut Traverse is like, I guess maybe I just know it well enough that nothing's really surprising me. It's like all quite runnable unless it's down climbable.
You're right.
This rocked my body. Yeah, yeah.
The Bigelows
And
are
Mahoosuc
legit.
also did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's typically like when I actually got the Hut Traverse FKT in 2018, I was like, all right, I just spent 10 years running in the White Mountains. Then I went and lived at elevation for 2.5 years or whatever. And now I'm actually like in the fitness and still have the wherewithal and technical like ability to do something like this. And I'm far enough removed from living in the White Mountains that when I go back, I have so much fun exploring Rangeley. It's a zone I've never, like, other than spending some time there in the summers, every trail is pretty much a new trail to me. And I'm like, oh my God, it is so exhausting. Like trying to run up Saddleback, from the south along the AT. You're like fully doing, like in football practice. And like, I never did football. This is strictly from movies. They like make you run through like the nets and stuff. It's that, but with roots, where like every step needs to be like in and then out, like with almost as much verticality. Like you have to completely forget not only any like cadence of running, because I'm not a linear like road runner. I typically am like a little skitty dat bat 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 style.
Sure.
But then you also like are like in and out in these ways that is such a different demand on them. A lot of that was just acting. I don't know if this is ever videoed, but I was just doing a ton.
Oh, it's video.
Cool.
We do video now. It's a high level podcast. Do you see the Hut Traverse as something you might come back to?
Yeah, but again, I need to be back east for a month.
Right.
Yeah. When Jack told me that 19 Mile Brook Trail was under construction, I was like, well, shit, like there's no way I'm going to go scout that. Like, I guess I would scout it on the hike up to Carter, but like even I'm far enough removed from the huts that it's not like, hey, I'm here. I'm doing a Hut Traverse tomorrow morning. Can I sleep over there on a bench? Like probably like need to book something and like actually like go through the normal, like, the Hut Traverse. I think the reason there's so much pride in it from Hut kids is like, it's very easy to do if you're a Hut kid because all of your friends work at all of the other huts. I am no longer, I'm 34 and haven't worked in the huts since 2016. Like I don't know anyone in the huts in a way that like I run through and they're like, here, let me fill your bottles. Or like, we made you pancakes. So I think I would need to like fully project it again. And certain parts I feel great about. I don't think anyone ever feels great about Madison Golf and like that whole zone. So yeah. And then there's like, I have so much respect for Jack's time on that. And I think that is like accepted as the Hut Traverse, but the OG Hut Traverse is super cool. And that's like Carter up and over the Wildcats down to Pinkham, from Pinkham up to Madison, or like there's some different ways to do it, but like you hit the Wildcats and Pinkham in the old school Hut Traverse. And I've never.
Really? That surprises me. Isn't that the McPhail Traverse?
Yeah, that's like, that was the OG Hut Traverse though. Like as it evolved, like to go more direct. McPhail was 70s. And again, that was the kind of standard route in the 50s.
Yeah. Huh.
So that would be
That's
cool to do
definitely
too.
for
Yeah.
sure. It's a worthwhile route to take on. The Wildcats are awesome.
I
That
had this like strong opposition to going to the top of mountains when I worked in the huts. And I don't think I'm alone. I had a friend reach out to me and just be like, Jeff, I heard you say this to Andrew Drummond, and like it just like made me smile because I never wanted to go to the summits of mountains. But I worked in the huts for 6 full summers and a couple falls in there, and prided myself on never having done more than like 6 or 7 of the actual summits, because like goofers are on summits and like you don't want to be around the goofers. So like a lot of my identity as a hut kid was like intentionally finding really cool trails that weren't summits, and then
Mhm.
like having the summits that were mine. And like Kerrigan, Garfield, those are like, oh no, I can go to those summits because no one else is really there. Like I love those summits. So yeah, in my last like 3 months working in as a caretaker at Tux and Wild and Carter, I like changed that. I was like, I'm about to leave here to like move to Colorado. Like, I want to do all the summits. And there are so many cool summits, like Tecumseh, the Tri Pyramids. There are like really, really cool summits that I was like, wow, I should have done this earlier. Um, but I've never done the Wildcats.
Well, that's kind of fun though. You've seen a lot of the whites, but you've saved a lot of adventure to have eventually when you get to it. That's kind of awesome.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm now in the exact same thing. I've lived in Colorado coming up on 10 years, and I like just avoid 14ers like the plague.
Sure.
Um, so maybe I'm like just missing something completely, but there's a couple 14ers that are like near and dear to me that I summit and like have my kind of moment of zen up high in the mountains. But otherwise, it's like, all right, Alpine Lakes. How can I link as
Yeah.
many together as possible and avoid going up to the
Sounds
tops?
like sounds like there's no Diartissima FKT in your future to take down Andrew Drummond.
That could be a cool way of seeing all the the 48 4,000 footers. Like that
It
could be
would
it.
be.
That could be I could knock off all of the summits on my list by doing that. I've not thought much about it. No. And like
Yeah.
I have a ton of respect for that. I think there's um I'm sure you know well about redlining and seasonal redlining and cardinal directioning. You know,
Mhm.
that is like such a testament to how much people love the White Mountains. I'm sorry, but I don't know of any other mountain range where it's like, oh, you've done the 48. Well, have you done them all 4 seasons, each one? And have you done all of them from different cardinal directions? And it's like, it's this like obsession and passion for this mountain range that like you gotta be there and live in it for a while to like fully understand it. And I think working at Tux, working at the huts, like you see a lot of those people, and like I'm sure at that time I was a hungover college kid judging them like that is so lame. I think it actually is super cool. And now like looking back on it, I think it's a testament to like how inspiring that area is.
And you don't see that sort of obsession in other places like Colorado or
There's definitely
Sierras.
like people do the 14ers, right? But
Sure.
like I'm sure there's some folks on 14ers.com who are like proud of doing the 14ers, you know, every season. I just think like look at the Randolph Mountain Club Trail Network. There's no shortage of trails.
Yeah.
Like you don't, it's not that they're doing these cardinal directions because like there aren't trails for them to hike. There's so many trails to hike. And it's just this like, oh no, that culture in the White Mountains is motivated by like people having projects, and those projects get them outdoors,
Mhm.
whether that's November and it's like a crappy time to go outside, or the middle of winter, like really year round. They're like, nope, I'm going to get outside. I'm going to enjoy and get to know this land. Uh, so like, yeah, more power to them. I think it's super cool. I think at some point I'll do the 48 4,000 footers in New Hampshire. My guess is I'll probably just continue ticking them off little by little as I'm back east. But the
Yeah.
Diartissima, it's a cool concept. I think Killian just probably opened people's eyes a little bit with his States of Elevation project of like, oh yeah, you could actually just do all the 4,000 footers in the Northeast. Like we could just keep making this like more expansive. And I think that dreaming big is one of the beautiful parts of our sport, right? I often think of like the three different axes that our sport is moving on. And like if X is people trying to go higher and like up more, Y is people trying to go further, and Z is people trying to go faster. Ultra running, trail running, it's happening in every direction all the time, all at once. So every year, like we can look and be like, wow, the mark for the VK was just beaten, or the mark for the most vertical feet in a year was just beaten, or the mark for the most miles run in a year was, and like it's one of the coolest expressions I think of the human condition, and like our like curiosity.
Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about the last sponsor for this episode, and that is Janji, Janji. Janji is a hiking, trail running, backpacking clothing company. They make fantastic clothing and accessories that I have been finding super useful on my training and my hikes recently. Very utilitarian, but also something like I can wear out in in public if I'm just going out to to go in town or what have you. Not that I live in a very populous area, but lately I've been really digging their Vortex wind block gloves. They're fantastic for when it's windy, for when it's cold, for when it's rainy. I've used them all the way down into like the mid-high teens, and they're, looking at them and feeling them, they're super lightweight, but they block the wind and the cold really, really well with that extra layer over the top of them, and they are super warm. I've been digging them a lot. So if you guys want to try out Janji, head on over to their website, which is in the show notes. Use code From the Backcountry, all one word, for 10% off your order, and then at checkout, where it says, "Where'd you hear from us?" Tell them you found out about Janji from the Backcountry. It helps the show a ton to let them know that we sent you over. And now back to the Mahoosuc Traverse with Jeff Colt. Yeah, absolutely. I want to bring it back to the Mahoosuc Traverse a little bit because on its face, this episode is going to be titled Jeff Colt Mahoosuc Traverse FKT. But had you ever done the Mahoosuc Traverse before?
My buddy Peter Howe and I did a bike run link up that was basically coming up Mount Success from there all the way up to Grafton Notch, getting on our bikes and biked back on kind of the western side of the Mahoosucs, like some dirt road. So I'd done 16 miles of it. I was gonna early on, like in my trip, I was back in for like pretty much the whole month of August. I was gonna scout the second half of it, and instead I went and ran Skookumchuck to Greenleaf Trail, and told myself, screw that, I want to do a Hut Traverse. Like I love Franconia Ridge, and like this zone feels right. So I never went and scouted the second half of the Mahoosuc, and then as time continued on, and I got humbled by the Bigelows, I was like, actually, there's no way I'm doing the Hut Traverse. So we're back to the Mahoosucs, and I'm gonna end up running the second half of it blind, which is kind of its own mental adventure. I don't know. Have you done any efforts, like hard efforts, where you don't know the terrain, or when you do long trail and stuff, you had already hiked it?
I'd done the long trail. When I like my first big ultra was the Diartissimo, and I didn't know what I was doing at all, and I hadn't done most
awesome.
of it. Yeah, it was a cool adventure for 20-year-old Will. Just to I had done like 20 of the 4Ks or something like that, and so 28 of them were brand new for me on that hike, and it was kind of sick way
and linking them up, right?
Right, yeah.
So that, like, that headspace of not knowing, that's when you start to like play tricks in yourself, right? And you're like, wait, I'm lost, when you're actually not lost at all. Or like they actually did a small diversion on the Mahoosuc Traverse near Page Pond. And
Mhm.
like, I looked at my watch and like, it's the first time I'd ever loaded because I didn't want to get lost on this. It's the first time I ever loaded a like file into my watch. And I'm like looking at it and like Hillary's like right over here and I'm right over here. And I'm like, am I lost or not? Turns out it's just new trail.
Sure.
I like fully didn't remember Mount or Cascade Mountain, like in my head of like researching the route. So I thought I was at Mount Hayes and I was like, I'm looking for this critical turn
Mm.
to not go on the AT. And like, if I screw this up and like for a solid 25 minutes, I was like, in this, I'm lost. I've screwed up. I shouldn't like have just come out here and not known where I was going. And turns out I just forgot a whole mountain. So
Mm.
I think that like, I love the curiosity side of FKT efforts. Like, can we do this? Can I even like, yeah, is this possible for me? Or like, what am I capable of? I want to just have a great day, like on the route. I don't think like I wasn't like trying to, you know, necessarily like hit a certain mark. I had ideas of what I thought I could do. But there's that side of it. And then there's the, where's my brain going to go? And
Mhm.
my brain definitely went to like the, I'm an idiot for not researching this more and coming out here. I'm lost. Like, I'm going to come out, basically on the other side of Gorham and head
Sure.
toward, the Carter Mariah range. And that's like the Hut Traverse. That's definitely not the case. Like, I guess with the exception of Mad Golf, like I get lost in there every time I go. It's a
Mhm.
guarantee, but I like, you know, on the Little and Big Dominguez Canyon route I did last fall, it's like, I don't know this route at all. And there's navigation parts of it. And I kind of dig that.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of fun to unpeel it as you go.
yeah, yeah. The parts that surprised me the most about the Mahoosuc were like, yeah, like when I when I'd done that little scouting run with Peter, whatever trail we came up, something pond, comes up right below Mount Success. So I'd never like actually done that little part of the route. And like the ecosystem completely changes from kind of this spruce fir forest to like more deciduous trees. And with how dry it was, like it was almost like I just changed seasons. I went from summer to fall because all the leaves had fallen from like the deciduous trees because there was just like things were dry. So uh, it was in some ways like really cool. And some of my favorite parts of it were like the discovery parts of not knowing what I was going to see.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Where do you think the time is on this route? Do you think there's I guess start with here. Do you think there's more time to be had on this route from like a speed slash fitness perspective or more time to be had on it from like a technical running perspective?
It's kind of a yes. Before we were talking about world champs and that course in the Pyrenees, which was
Right.
incredibly technical, but like who won world champs in the 80K? Like Jim Walmsley. And like, is he an incredibly technical runner or is he a really fast runner? Like, if you look at the other races at world champs, the 40K or the short course, or sorry, the short course is the 40K or the classic, the up down, basically orienteers won.
Mm.
Like
Oh,
orienteers
interesting.
showed up in a huge way, orienteers and sky runners. So I think there's this like kind of assumption in at least trail and ultra running that orienteers and sky runners are slow. And that's
Mm.
just like, it's not the case. It's the same thing with trail runners and road marathoners. Like, just because I don't want to go do a road marathon doesn't mean I'm necessarily slow.
Sure.
I just prefer running on this terrain. And like, if someone prefers running on that technical terrain, I'll use Dylan Flewelling. It's like a great example. The time he put down on Bigelow's, if he wants to go do Mahoosucs, like he's definitely going to give my time a run for its money. And I see the workouts he does. He's super fast.
It's
It's
insane.
like coaching like Keene Valley or Keene State, and like, you know, they're running really fast all the time.
Mhm.
So like, I do think someone who has technical prowess and speed is going to do well. Um, I think Hillary's an example of someone with incredible technical prowess who beat every runner who'd ever done it, before her. And like, there's a lot to be said there. So I stand by my answer is yes. Like, if you're really fast and you're good on technical terrain, that's great. If you're a really good technical runner, you're probably really fast. I think that the time in my mind, like the time that I would go back and seek is from Mount Success to the finish. But honestly, it's probably 10 seconds here and there. It's like, it's up until Mount Success. I mean, I would say I like to think I'm like pretty good at the Mahoosuc Notch. That is like kind of my gold standard. Like, mix a little bit of rock climb with like some natural athleticism with like really good technical running. And it's 3 points of contact at all time. And like, that's like, proprioception's my jam. Like, that's where I can like feel like everything's activated and like get my tingly like feelings on my fingers. So like, all right, spidey senses are on. So like, I was still surprised by the trek down to the Mahoosuc Traverse or the notch itself. Like, that was way more technical than I remembered. But I think from mile 16 to the finish, had I not had a heavy pack on and had I like known the terrain, naturally, I think I could run faster. And before doing the route, the numbers I had in my mind were like, great day is 6:30. A good day is around like 7 hours. And I think I had like a pretty great day.
That makes sense. You mentioned the orienteers on, the 40K. Do you think that like a John Kelly or like someone like that could compete at a race like that, or are you like, am I misunderstanding what orienteer means?
No, that's John's an orienteer. I think the sport has evolved. I think there's just orienteers who are faster than John now. I'm not saying like, no discredit to John Kelly. I think he's a remarkable athlete and super cool for a brief period in time to get to be teammates with him with Ultimate Direction and kind of like get to know him more. I think the orienteering racing in Europe is like pretty next level. And that's where he got involved with it when he was living over in the UK for a bit. But yeah, that's like, I don't know enough about that community. And I would say in general, there's not enough cross-pollination between like pretty conventional American, like centered trail running, people caring about whether it's golden ticket races or other events Aravaipa might be putting on in the 200-mile range. Like, I think the focus here is not on that. And like, you don't see, I actually think Caleb Olson would be like an awesome person to like go explore the orienteering space, because I think Caleb also has some real technical prowess. Like, you don't see many top trail runners dabbling in orienteering or really sky racing. Like, sky running, we've ended up by doing these circuits, by doing whatever, UTMB, Sky Running World Series, Golden Trail, like, folks aren't kind of diving out of their lane as much as they used to. I don't think there's a great example of like a modern day Max King, who's winning obstacle course races, crushing in sky races, and doing ultras. Tove Alexander, the woman who won the short course, the 40K. I don't know what to say. Like, that was so outrageous and kind of makes me think like, maybe I want to do some orienteering. Like, it seems cool.
Do you think it's a mark of, the professionalization of the sport that people can't sort of, cross-pollinate between disciplines, that you have to focus on one in order to be great at it?
Not necessarily in order to be great at it, but like, we all benefit from having a focus. So I do think there's something to be said about that. In like, not trying to upset anyone here, I have a ton of respect for Western states. That was my focus for 7 years. And like, I love that race. I really wish I hadn't spent as many years seeking golden tickets to get into that race, because I think the golden ticket circuit, like, unless you have great financial backing and like can sign up for each race and like do numerous golden ticket races in a season, you kind of need to believe in yourself and like go all in on, I'm getting a golden ticket, so I'm racing Western States. I'd say 3 years in a row, I've made that mistake of like not having a backup plan and then being like, well, what excites me? I think there's like this assumption, and it's pretty fair assumption because it's what sponsors are putting on performance incentives and stuff, that the path to like becoming a professional trail runner is through golden ticket races to Western States. I would have much preferred to have like, I don't know, run Grindstone, like gotten to do the Mahoosuc Traverse when I wanted to back in like 2016, 2018, like do these legendary East Coast races, as well as like some of the West Coast races that are most appealing to me, my walk 100K, like that have these like real legacy, have fallen off or like fallen out of favor with like sponsors or the Western States orbit in some way. And it's easy to like stay in a lane or like kind of try to remain focused. I don't think that's like the fault of necessarily the athletes. I think it takes a curious athlete to be like, all right, like the King's Trail in Scotland, that FKT looks sick. I want to go do that. I'm skipping doing a race that I might get my travel covered for and like get paid if I do well there to just go do what I want to do. There's no incentives at all for me to do sky running races or orienteering races, right? So like in the same way I was saying before of like one for me, one for them, like the FKT scene, if your sponsor, like speaking as if everyone's sponsored, in some cases sponsored, promote that, right? And like they want you to go try the rim to rim to rim. That's awesome. But I think a lot of brands, the focus is Western States and UTMB and maybe Hard Rock. There's there like as a tertiary race for Americans if you're lucky. It's like that doesn't really encourage us to like step out of the lane or explore these other things. I have bucket list races that like Seven Sisters is still on my bucket list race. That's in Massachusetts. It's hyper technical. It's really short. I really wanted to do it in like 2013, and I was just horribly sick the morning of the race after sleeping in a hammock at like the starting line or whatever. Like there's going to be races like at a certain point, like, yeah, I just want to do things that I'm really passionate about and that I want to do. So I think this world's course in the Pyrenees at least enlightened me to like, it's not just like this like UTMB circuit where people are really fast. Like I think Tara Dower is like kind of making people question that as well of like, all right, what if I really just want to do that FKT effort? And why don't I make my sponsors care about it? Like that's another way of doing things of like, hey, if things are written in a way that doesn't work for me, what if I were to change that? But yeah, I don't even know a single orienteering race, if I'm going to be honest. So I guess
fair,
like Barkley, but I don't think that's quite fair.
Yeah, fair enough. Who would you like to see come after the Mahoosuc Traverse if you could, if you could wave your magic wand?
Yeah, I wrote it in my report. Dylan Flewelling, Dan Kurtz, Jack Kenzel, Katie Scheid, Jordan Fields, all like runners that have ties to that area that are ridiculously fast and technical terrain. Katie also won Worlds. Should put that out there. Born and raised in Maine. Like we went to school together in Vermont, but a Hut kid herself, like kind of molded in the White Mountains. She's incredibly fast and incredibly good on technical terrain. Like there's no doubt she can beat my time on that route. I think any of those runners, like if they're interested in it, like I definitely would advise checking out the full route. That was something I did a disservice to myself there. Yeah, I had a good bike ride with Kind when I was back east. He's
Mhm.
like or at least living in Maine, and like be super cool to see him do that. I think he has the Grafton Loop, which is right next to it. And like somewhat similar metrics, a little less vert, but a lot less technical. And yeah, like I think the main reason I did the Mahoosuc Traverse was I think it's a really worthy route, and I wanted to
Yeah.
get more attention. And like it's worthy, and then beyond just being worthy, it's so history. Like we're talking about the earliest recorded, the early fast recorded times in like the 1920s. It's super cool. Um, and like I think like at the same time, I'd love anyone from the Western US who's like hot on the trail scene to go try it, because that's like always the best thing you can do. Like I thought Killian's State of Elevation was a really cool project, but I also loved that there was like a campaign to get him to the White Mountains,
Yeah.
because like it sometimes can be great for people who have proven they're the best elsewhere to like come to a mountain range and just be humbled. And that's not saying I'm not humbled. I'm humbled every time I'm home. It's the best. It's like why I have so much appreciation.
Sure. Yeah. Do
What
you
about
think
you? What names come to mind for you?
I'd love to? I mean, same names that you saw. I would love to. Like, we need the Dylan Flewelling and the Dan Kurtz, like, to actually have a debut in this competitive FKT scene, because they both talk about it. I mean, Dan's been talking about it for longer. I think Dylan will. But yeah, Dylan's so fast. He like ran a 2:34 marathon as like a random training run. Like, that kid's ridiculous.
And he
Um,
clearly has the technical skill set, which is like, that's what's up. Like, you don't have to be a 220 marathoner to
for sure.
run fast in the mountains, but you need to be able to run fast in the mountains. If you're
Totally.
also very fast, your systems are probably efficient enough that like, yeah, then it's just making sure you know the route and nutrition.
For sure.
Um, yeah.
I think there's some other really fast people. I think Jake Aceto, he's
Yeah.
a like a
Jake
local guy.
he did it with JP Kroll the Wednesday before I did. And they were the two that were just like, pull the plug, don't
Sure.
do this. Uh, and like, it's been fun following Jake.
Mhm.
I think he's had some like really stout efforts, and it seems like he's like so close to just like fully sticking one.
Yeah, for sure. My boy Xander Kiter, I think he's really fit. I think he struggles with the technical terrain sometimes, like the most technical terrain. So I'm not sure if the Mahoosuc is his jam. But other big White Mountains routes, I'd love to see him, take a crack at, because he's definitely got fitness.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the right runner for the Mahoosucs is like a good technical runner who maybe like would also be pretty good at like Ninja Warrior,
Yeah,
and like
fair.
has some like upper body strength. And like I think some runners end up, I don't think it's as common for like trail runners, but I think there's some assumption that runners are like not very coordinated.
Mhm.
And for moving through that terrain, you definitely want to be like very coordinated. Yeah, I appreciate you putting out this podcast and having this conversation, because like that's going to get a little bit more attention to the Mahoosuc Traverse. I am not trying to get attention to the Mahoosuc Traverse because of the effort I did on it. That's
Mhm.
like, I'm trying to get attention to the Mahoosuc Traverse because it is super cool. And like anyone who likes running in like just a very different and inspiring terrain, it's not bushwhacky. I'm not like telling you to go out there. It's like you're gonna beat yourself up because you're probably gonna trip.
Right. Right.
Like you numerous times I'm like grabbing branches to like catch myself from falling, or like being surprised by bog bridges that actually are like seesaws. Um, like it's a super beautiful route. It's really
Mhm.
cool. And like the fact that it's also history is pretty special. So for me, being a lifelong, well, I know I live in Colorado. I'm a New Hampshire guy, like in my brain. It's hard to unprogram, but like I've been spending most of my time back east now in Maine. And I was like, this is actually pretty, like, the start wasn't too far of a drive from Rangeley. It's like getting used to being in Maine a little bit. And all right, what if I did a Maine route? That's kind of
Sure.
cool. But yeah, it's a sweet one. Like in the aftermath of it, like I texted Andrew Drummond and was like, Andrew, like it would be so cool to set up a similar thing to the White Mountain 100, which I want to do. Like that's just outright the hardest part of that is the time of year. It's happening like at the same time as all the big 100-mile races, which like I'm both interested in doing those races and incentivized to do those races.
Right.
But I think a stage race of like the Bigelows, the Mahoosucs, you could make as many stages as you want, but there's so many great options. You got the Bald Faces, you got Carter Mariah Wildcats, you've got the actual Prezi, you've got the Pemi. You want a long route, do the Hut Traverse.
Sick. Yeah.
Like the Kinsmans to Moosalok, if you really like mud and mosquitoes, that can be cool too. Like I think in the same way that Northeast or like New Hampshire Enduro, there's like a mountain biking stage race that kind of goes through the White Mountains and stuff. I think that for trail running, I don't care if any like other elites and stuff want to like actually come and experience New Hampshire. I think for the folks who love New Hampshire, we would relish in it. It would be so cool. Like, and I love this concept of like, I think JP Kroll was telling me like, what would it look like to try to have like the fastest accumulative time over the summer of the Pemi, the Hut Traverse, the Mahoosuc, and the Prezi. He was choosing those four. But like, I think these like, again, it's like we like this mountain range so much that we're willing to like continue creating contrived objectives and goals. Like, yeah, that would be sweet to see. Like, it'd be super cool to get buy-in. In this brief moment when the world was shut down and Golden Trail was like, we're doing FKT routes to qualify for the Golden Trail World Series. That should just come back in a real way because it was super cool to see like from afar all these people doing the Prezi and like hammering the Prezi to try to actually progress it. Like when I think of what ways can we incentivize or like build a structure, maybe that's like providing camping and like shuttling around like doing a cool stage event with some of those routes. It builds more community. It's so funny. I told this to Andrew too. Like I feel so shameful talking about building community when I left the community. Like I see what goes on at Bubba's. Like it looks awesome. I want to be there. Last year standing, like these events, I know that the community is there. And like, maybe I'm just saying that that's the event that would be appealing enough that I'd fully just come back for.
Sure. Yeah. I think Drummond's done a really good. Totally. He's done a really good job of starting to, I think he has the starts of like creating that stoke for these sort of events with his like White Mountain Throwdown series. And like he had like a whole throwdown just for the Swan Song and getting people, incentivizing people to get out there. Like, and there were like 40 efforts on the Swan Song in that 1 month that he put the incentive out there.
Were there actually 40 efforts?
I don't know the exact number. I just know that like it seemed like everyone was doing the Swan Song. There must have been at least 30.
Yeah, like that's what's up. When he started, so not saying like he was inspired by what I was going on, but 2 summers ago I did a route of the month here in the Roaring Fork Valley. So every month there'd be a new route. I would run it like basically the last day of the previous month to create that whole segment. And if you went and did that segment, all you had to do was just finish it. If you completed that segment and I saw you on the leaderboard, or if you didn't register it, send me your file. Basically, I just gave away a prize package. Like if that was a pair of shoes from On, great. I got some local sponsors to buy in, like brewery, local gear shop, local ski shop and stuff. So I could just give out a different prize package every month for these routes. And
that's really cool.
Jump back to June of this year. my second summer, I worked at Lonesome Lake Hut. Outside of working at Lonesome, I've like done the Hut Traverse. But I certainly ran the Lonesome Lake Trail as fast as possible while working there. It's 2011 or 12 or something. All of a sudden, I'm getting Strava notifications that my Lonesome Lake Trail not FKT crown that I'd had for like, I don't know if it was 2012, 2015, for over 10 years, like went down. And then by the end of the week, I'm looking at it, I'm not even like in the top 10. I'm like, what is Andrew doing right now? And then he did it with the Adams, some variation of the Mount Adams Challenge. Like Scar Trail is one of the prettiest trails in the world. It's this tiny little segment from Valleyway to, I think you reconnect on Adams with Airline.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like Scar Trail is my zone. Like all of my little fairy friends live in the moss there. Like, when I worked at Madison, I was there all the time. Didn't think twice. Like all of a sudden I'm getting notifications. My crown on Scar Trail is gone. And I'm like, Andrew's just targeting me. I feel so, so violated from afar. Yeah, the same thing happened with Tuckerman. I think he did it with like the Tuckerman Ravine Trail, where like, again, I worked at Tux. It wasn't that I was like trying to be the fastest person up Tux. I just happened to work there and be a runner and going there a lot. So like that was like my little project. You know, we have our pack trails, Old Bridle Path. Like I need to go back and just see how fast I can run that now. I know it's been changed a bunch, but Valley Way, like my times on those trails were because I did them 4 times a week for 10 weeks. So like I'm trying to shave off seconds, like just competing against myself. I haven't thought about him at all. And then all of a sudden this summer with Run the Whites, like, and Andrew's kind of like objectives just left and right. Like, and those emails hurt. I don't care about anything around here. There's one fastest segment I have in Carbondale that I'm like, if someone beats that, like I'm taking them to dinner or something. Like,
Sure.
But those ones, I'm like, the Scar Trail? Like, no. So yeah, it's super cool. I know the community's there and you know, maybe this is just me whining about wanting to be part of it again.
We're here. We're waiting for you. Anytime.
Yeah. Yeah. White Mountain 100, New Hampshire, like on the AT, Hut Traverse, those are probably, and like, not to mention the 100-mile wilderness. Like I really want to, if I'm in Maine for another 3 weeks, like I want to give that a try because everything that Finn Melanson said about it just looks so beautiful. A lot of lakes, a lot of water, like seems cool. Being on the Bigelows,
yeah,
and just looking out at all the lakes, I'm like, Maine has something going on that New Hampshire doesn't really, and that's a ton of lakes.
It really does. And it's just, the New Hampshire feels very grand, but Maine feels wild to me in a way that New Hampshire doesn't for the most part.
Yeah. I got lost in the Pemmy my first summer working in the Whites, and there are parts of New Hampshire that feel very wild. I remember bushwhacking for like 3 or like it was actually coming back from the first time I went up Kerrigan. You know, wilderness zones are super cool. We love the wilderness. What happens when there's no trail signs and you can't find the trail at all and you end up just like bushwhacking and you're late for dinner? I like totally thought I was going to die. Just like everything I crawled over collapsed beneath me, like deadfall everywhere. Like, you know, it probably hadn't really been trodden since the major like deforestation in like the 1860s. So like, you couldn't see the ground and stuff. And it's one of those realization moments. Like the reason the White Mountains are so rocky on all the trails is like, you know, that we've just eroded all of the life and stuff away to make them these like nice staircases. So you can definitely feel the wild there, but I hear you.
For sure. Like
on a
Shoal
much
Pond.
bigger scale.
Yeah. No, there are places. Shoal Pond, like Wild River Wilderness. There's Dry River Wilderness. Those, like, you can get in. I guess the difference in Maine is, like you were talking about earlier, with it's like the main corridor that people travel through in Maine is very wild.
Like, that's where it starts to be like confusing. Of like, really? Like this is, and kudos to you, man. when I hiked the long trail and after Main Junction, I was like, wait, is there anyone else here hiking? I was just like you leave Main Junction and it's just getting hit in the face with hobble brush and like, all of these like different kind of undergrowth. It was just so overgrown in the first like 2 days. Like picture 19-year-old me with a tiny little like 30 or 40 liter low alpine back with my Crocs attached to the outside and my pan attached to the outside. And I lost my Crocs just fully, just got knocked off my pack. Didn't realize it till that night. Like, the places where you're not getting as many visitors end up being like a little bit more overgrown. But in the case of the AT, like we're talking about the primary corridor where you have over 1,000 people walking through there.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Would you like, if you did a multi-day effort, would it be the long trail?
The John Muir Trail looks so cool. I don't know much about it, but that seems like just like I've been up Whitney a couple of years ago. Buddy Drew Peterson and I like did a bike to hike to ski from Badwater Basin in Death Valley, like the 135 miles to the Whitney Portal, and then skied the Mountaineers route. And
Sick.
worst ski conditions of my life. It was very bad. But I like the idea of like from that Whitney Portal, kind of ending after Half Dome. That is just grandiose. Unlike, I think it would blow my mind. I love Vermont. The Long Trail is very special. I think it would be a different adventure that maybe I'm much better suited for than something like the John Muir Trail, because that is like a horse packing, animal packing kind of trail. Yeah, I would probably lean toward doing, I guess New Hampshire would just be 163 miles. It's definitely still, I guess, multi-day.
Right.
I would lean toward doing the state of New Hampshire on the AT first because I'm interested in trying to create more precedent or attention around that. I bailed on the long trail when I hiked it in 2010, had like just a super, super low point. And my friend who I went out there hiking with actually dropped out like on day 4. So I was like, wait, I actually came out here to be with that person. And now I'm just out here alone and not enjoying myself. So like, why don't I just go home and hang out with my friend? So I still need to do like kind of stow onward and see. I've never seen that section of the trail. So that could be cool. I think there's like, there's a number of multi-day routes that maybe are more just like matching a number of my interests. I would actually do the Deer Tiffsima as like a bike to hike before doing it.
That'd be pretty cool.
Bike to run before doing it as a like running on the roads and stuff.
Sure.
I love road biking and like it's a super cool area to do it.
Sure. I mean, in the traditional Diartisma route, there's not a whole lot of road running.
Okay.
You could make it a road running route, but I think, it's 230 miles and there's probably like 15 or 20 total miles on the roads.
That's not too bad. Yeah.
Like, I like, I don't know how many, 15 of those miles are from Caps Ridge to Wambeck. It's like, so there's not a ton of road, but you could make a really cool New Hampshire 48 like bike packing route. That would be sick.
Yeah, there's some awesome, like, there's just awesome, great road and gravel riding, like in New Hampshire. Like, I think of Jefferson Notch Road, which, like, I drove in beater cars numerous times, but would really enjoy gravel riding, I'm sure. Yeah, in college, we did like a link up the 4,000 footers in Vermont by skiing them all in a day, like skinning and skiing them.
Sick.
So it was like actually a ton of driving. And like not great skiing and kind of miserable skinning, but that at least planted this seed of like, it's cool to, I won't say driving per se, but it's cool to do this like multimodal, like what would a Hut Traverse look like if you did just the actual pack trails that the Hut crew do and biked between them all? I don't know. Like, I think if I lived back east, I'd be exploring in different capacities in that way. But the bike to run just feels like really fun. I like doing that.
Yeah, it's very cool. Cool. Well, I don't want to keep you too long, but how can people follow your adventures?
I'm on Instagram at like easy_dog. I do some writing on Substack. You can find me there as Jeff Colt. I want to lean more into that side of things. I think every time I go to do a social media post, I kind of cringe at like posting a photo, but I do want to write stuff. And then
Yeah.
like my wife's like, Jeff, that caption's really long. Maybe you should make it like 10 words. I'm like, I don't think this is the right place for me. So yeah, that's a place, and we'll see kind of how training kicks back up this late fall and winter. But I got inspired by friend Mike McMonagle, who went over and did the Snowdonia 100 mile last May. So I'm going over to Snowdonia to do the 100K in May this year. And like everything I've heard about Snowdonia is it's like the White Mountains, but they haven't had trees for like 3,000 years. So just like it's like if the White Mountains were bare and like grass grew back over everything, which just looked pastoral and incredibly Welsh. Yeah, that's the next like big thing I'm looking forward to, and who knows what the summer will hold after that. But I'd love to try to get a block back in New Hampshire if I can't line up timing for actually joining Andrew and company for the White Mountain 100. Like that's still a route that would be sweet to do if the lottery gods don't bless me with something like an entry to the Hard Rock 100, which would be very cool if that happened, Dale.
No pressure,
yeah.
Dale.
No pressure.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's like that's kind of what's coming, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, for sure. Well,